He's keeping the. Oh my god! Oh, it was a fair fight.
I mean, honorable from Brody.
Fair fight. He got dodged.
For bringing knives to gunfights and so many other different battles that we can list on so many different digits across the entirety of the weekend. Welcome back to Today in Esports on the Global Gaming Network channel, the place for all of your news and happenings across the world. My name's Andy. Joining with me as always is Chris. And Chris, it has been a fantastic weekend. We got League of Legends regular season kicking back off. Counter-Strike is back in attendance for another major. We got EWC action. What were you mostly in store for?
Of course, it was League of Legends, but EWC kicking off, we had a ton of games that we got to watch and go over, as well as Counter-Strike, some Valorant action as well. It was a jam-packed weekend. Let's go ahead and jump into it.
Yep, let's go ahead and start the conversation immediately with Counter-Strike. Counter-Strike, as we were talking about, is kicking off for IEM. I am just all over the place. IEM Cologne is currently kicking off as far as the group stage and play-ons are concerned. We are currently amidst that tournament. Literally, in the middle of this recording, we still have matchups that are going on. What you're going to be seeing are these highlight packages, mostly from that play-in stage. And basically, for layman's purposes, if you place top 8 within this first stage, well, then you go in towards the next group.
Yeah, and well, what a great games that we had, especially looking at Tyler here coming off of one of their previous wins, going against the BP, doing really well in some of their games. We're also having teams that have had some shakeups, such as FaZe that we saw here. We have to see how they can do going into it, but they did qualify.
Yeah, they sure did. Throughout all of these different highlights, you're going to be seeing some of the greatest and some of the biggest falterings for a lot of these different teams throughout the opening for this double elimination bracket for the play-ins. We got FaZe going 2-0 with their matches with a 2-1 win versus Liquid. Astralis actually coming up short versus Fudia. You can see right here from Yukindar's perspective, may not seem like it with the way that one played out. Device also had a really good, I would say, tournament thus far. The AWP for Astralis, again with the IGL fully signed of Hooksy from his time at G2. Did come up a little bit short, but I would say the matchup versus Bait was probably one of the most fun that I've had watching a Counter-Strike series, probably since we had that grand finals way back when. But I would say even this much as well, Chris. Throughout all of it, I didn't really know what to expect. Who was going to actually make their way through that lower bracket to see the next stage?
I don't think we did either. I mean, we're watching here Ninjas in Pajamas versus 30 Max. Ninjas in Pajamas actually picking up that win. Gamer Legion versus Virtus Pro. We're still in this upper bracket here trying to see who goes through. But I think a lot of that also stems from all the shakeups that we've had post all these events. So we're seeing a lot of these teams with the roster shakeups. We're trying to see how they mesh well together in these tournaments. Of course, they're trying to make their way to that bracket stage that we'll talk about a little bit later. But a lot of these teams are coming out swinging. FaZe, though, looked pretty good against Team Liquid in these matchups here.
Yeah, here's that map 3 on Nuke, the decider in between the two. Rain was really coming into his own, especially as the rifler that we can expect from Rain. He had the 4-piece mowdown, top apartments. I forget which team that was. I want to say that it was against Big, but I could be severely mistaken. That old new car smell for FaZe looking pretty decently, but to save your spoilers for in a little bit. This was that map number 2 that actually helped TL push themselves over the limit. 3 quick snaps with the AWP out of ultimate, and that's what I was saying. Had himself a really good series. Everybody was bringing their own. Again, we have not seen this many Counter-Strike teams in attendance together since Dallas.
Yeah, and it was crazy as we were looking at some of these lower brackets going in here. Liquid versus FlyQuest. Liquid trying to come and bounce back after that match versus FaZe to make their way into the play-ins here. As you can see, they're once again going that distance to that map number 3. Astralis versus Pain. Once again, Astralis would take it all the way. Pain having a good first map here, but Astralis coming back to win it and qualify. But as we're talking about all the teams that qualified and didn't, let's go ahead and take a look at the bracket here. As you said, the play-in, we do have the upper starting here, so we can talk about FaZe versus Big. FaZe getting that 2-0. Liquid also taking it versus Pain. Thus, we saw them playing in that upper as well. And just across the board here, it's just everyone was trying to do their best, but we had some, pretty one-sided matches though.
Yeah, we sure did. Again, a lot of 2-1s, and then it goes immediately into 2-0s, but Liquid, again, being able to pull their way back to at least force the nuke. Map number 3 is tippable nonetheless, but FaZe, Gamer Legion, Ninjas in Pajamas, and Fudia will all advance in towards the next stage. But the lower bracket also ends up having your own stages of qualification. It'll take the top 4 from these last chances of the individuals are big. Had a tough draw versus FaZe in their opening round. And then Pain Gaming, which we got to see what Pain was able to offer at that Fisher Playground, albeit coming up short. To Tyloo at the end. I would still say that they showed their own versus Astralis, but again, Astralis has been looking top-notch with Hooksy as that IGL role. They'll join Heroic, 3D Max, and Liquid, who got the better of FlyQuest, who bow out in the opening stage of IEM Cologne, so they won't even go up against the top dogs to be able to see what their alterations would look like. But again, at the time of this recording, we do have the second stage that is currently being played. It is now known as the group stage as far as IEM Cologne is concerned. And this, Chris, this is where the big dogs get to eat. This is where they come to play. We got Mouse and Vitality coming into the mix.
It is, and we have a lot of these teams. Vitality, of course, picking up where they left off, just, playing flawless Counter-Strike as it is. But I want to say Falcons was one that I really want to look at. We finally have Kioski making his debut. First, we're going to start with FaZe versus Navi, so we'll get to that a little bit later. But again, these are teams that had to make their way into it. FaZe looking to bounce back after having to make it through that qualifying stage into this group stage. Navi as well, doing really good. And I mean, this is what we're looking here. Brookie coming in for Simple, and just what are we looking at? He can make it. And the FaZe roster changes are working out.
They're working out to at least take a map off of Navi, but throughout all intents and purposes, winning the map that they did, this is actually where that opening clip came from. It's just super awkward. Brokey, welcome back to the knife fight. A little bit of a dodge, knife 1v1s in the middle of Dust 2 working out for a bit, but funnily enough, FaZe actually lost that to Navi. I want to say that it was in 3, and yeah, it sure was. FaZe were able to win that Ancient, and then 13-9, 13-5 on Mirage and Nuke, but we had a lot of good matchups all the way through. That's in Group B. This is that Falcons matchup that you were talking about versus Gamers Legion. This was their first matchup, Chris. They won this one 2-0, but the matchup that they had subsequently afterwards in Group A did not go their way.
No, it did not. And I mean, up against Gamer Legion, you get their first win. You get Kioski getting some of the reps in. Pretty good from what they're looking at with Gamer Legions. But they had a tough opponent in that second matchup going against Mongols there. I mean, so we have to give them their props here for this first one. But Mongols, though, they have been just kind of running with the momentum that they have gotten lately, and they look like such a strong team right now.
Yeah, you got to see that that opening play for a lot of different players out of the Mongols. They have just been realistically just leveling themselves up more and more so ever since their grand finals appearances, even coming up short versus Vitality. We see them playing them closer and closer. Listen, we know what the Mongolian roster could definitely bring to the table, what all of the Asian teams are able to bring to the table. Here's Mouse versus Team Liquid. This was one of their opening matchups for Mouse. They won that one 2-0. Again, we have not seen Mouse since they lost to Vitality back up on that main stage. And well, speaking of Vitality and the Bald Apex coming to play as well, they looked very good versus G2, but I would say on the opposite side from G2's alterations, they actually played Vitality pretty close on train.
They did. I mean, you have to give them props for it. You're going against a team that's just been winning out 2025. So it's going to take a little while to get into it. But again, back to this. We were talking about a little bit earlier, Mongols versus Falcons. Here it is, probably one of the biggest tests for Kioski, and right now, Mongols, as we were talking about, just kind of running with it. And then we're going back to that grand final in that upper bracket finals where we'll see Vitality versus Mongols facing off against each other, but now back down over to B. We have Team Spirit, Donk doing his things and playing really well to face off against Aurora actually right now.
Yeah, that's currently going on as you were just talking about, and I'll rip the Band-Aid off. I'll let you know that Spirit at the top of this recording are 1-0 up over Aurora. They were able to take that map 13-10, but a 2-0 win over Heroic. They are staring down the barrel of potentially qualifying for their group in a 2-0 fashion, but here is that Group A. Falcons versus Mongols. And just as a fun little tidbit for that entire series, the only player that was positive after getting bamboozled by the Mongols was Kisioke. He dropped a 1.34 for his rating. Everybody else was somewhere south of 0.9. That is scary, especially when you think about the money bags that's flying around for that Falcons roster. But here's that Group B, and how it all concluded. Mouse, they were able to 2-0 not only Liquid, but also Na'Vi. You'll see that in the upper semis as it populates. Na'Vi, that 2-1 win versus FaZe was massive. You can see that how their alterations are putting themselves a little bit further up on the pedestal. But Nip coming up short versus Aurora, and then as we already talked about, Aurora are currently down 0-1 versus Spirit. But things, I'm not going to lie, outside of that FaZe loss, is kind of shaping up exactly how I thought it would.
Yeah, and of course we do have the lower, so they can try to make a run. We will see FaZe going up against the loser of this Aurora versus Team Spirit, so we'll have to see who they face off. Potentially can maybe get a rematch versus Navi, depending on how Nip versus Navi goes as well. So we have a lot of matches and a lot of crazy games to look forward to this week.
Hey, we sure do. Again, you want to keep your butts glued to your seats and subscribing to the Global Gaming Network channel, as we're going to be talking about all things with IEM Cologne, and Into the Smoke should be recorded later today and released later on this week. You definitely want to be looking out for all of that. Plus the top 10 plays, top 8 plays. Who knows? There's so many good ones that are coming out from the entirety of that tournament. But that's enough to do as far as IEM Cologne is concerned, excuse me. We're going to be shifting our focus over towards the Esports World Cup. We're flying from Cologne. We're going over to Saudi Arabia because the Esports World Cup is very much so in full effect. We had a couple championships that did conclude from this past weekend, starting off with StarCraft II.
Yeah, StarCraft II, and
It's World
here
Cup!
it is.
StarCraft II World Champion! Basilisk Serral!
4 days ago, that.
This is a super long tournament for StarCraft II. They had all the different plans. We saw Hero Marine making the Herculean bracket run just to get DFR'd in the group stage. That group within its own self had so many heavy hitters. Chris, you and I, as older individuals, put it this way, very happy to be able to see like the likes of Solar, Classic you saw in the grand finals as well, make an appearance at the Esports World Cup.
Yeah, definitely exciting. And I mean, what you saw there, if you're following StarCraft II, is probably something that you've been familiar with in 2025. Cyril just completely, doing his thing and running through it. I mean, I was personally excited to see Hero play. Unfortunately, did get knocked out a little bit early, but it is what it is. I mean, just look at this. Going into the grand finals, Classic versus Cyril. The last time I think they did face off, though, was at DreamHack Dallas, where it was actually one of the rare occurrences where we actually did see Classic take the series versus Cyril. So we did have a bit of a rematch here, though, in this grand finals. And, well, it kind of was just a little bit of a blowout.
That matchup wasn't even for grand finals with Cyril versus Classic. That was for top 4, and that's unfortunately where Cyril got knocked down a peg. But listen, if you're new to StarCraft II, I don't know where you've been. Go back and watch the Broodboard tournaments. But this guy, Cyril, has just about been winning everything that is south of DreamHack Dallas from the past month of competitions. Coming into the Esports World Cup, we had a lot of eyes on Clem. Clem did win out in his group, but he got DFR'd in the playoff round, where he didn't even make it past his opening matchup versus Classic, which you can clearly tell on his Protoss, made it all the way to the grand finals. But Cyril on this Zerg has been writing the book on how it's supposed to be played. So much so that he 4-0'd Kier, of all people, in the matchup previous to this one. And Kier, on his Terran, has always been putting Zergs in the ground.
And he has. And I mean, looking at Solar versus Classic, though, it was just, historic South Korea that you can just think of Classic doing a great job, on the initial map, makes it 2 grand finals here. But then it starts out in that game 1, which is a complete domination for it. I mean, you're just looking at both of the players going back and forth, and Cyril just seemingly had the recipe to how to play this out. Though Classic did come back, he was able to make some waves and try to bring in a couple games as he did get the 2. But it just didn't seem, every time he found a way to get back into it, Cyril just seemed to be 4 or 5 steps ahead to be able to get into the next couple of rounds and just completely take those maps off of Classic.
Yeah, 0-2 down right here for Classic. It's a best of 9, so you feel like war of attrition is surely there. Some would argue that Cyril called that one a little bit too soon, but you saw the Robo build coming after the Blink Stalkers being completed from the Warp Gates being then produced by Classic. At that point, Cyril just did not have enough econ to keep himself in towards the game. So Classic won that one. Cyril won the subsequent game 4. And in towards game number 5, this is when Classic really started to lock things in. It's really difficult no matter who you are. You can be Protoss or Terran going up against a Zerg. If you do not keep their bases in check and they continue to expand and expand and expand, you're always playing far from behind. And Cyril, from that book that I was talking about writing, he's always quick to expand into follow-up Zerglings to clean up any team fight that he's a part of.
Yeah, and just as macro, though, on the opposite end, if you're just taking a look at his APM, just how high it is the whole entire time.
Disgusting.
It is disgusting. And I mean, but the one thing I also wanted to touch on, I love the heart rate monitors here. You see 139, you're maybe thinking that's high. And as of course gets higher, the quicker, the closer it gets to him winning. But he was relatively composed throughout this whole entire thing. But just his decision making throughout the whole entire process, between scouting at the beginning to his base building that you're referring to at the end, he was just out macroing Classic just at every single turn here. I mean, look at this.
Look at the creep. Look at the creep on the
It's
mini
just
map.
the whole entire time. It's just 2/3 of this map is taking up. What
It's
can
terrible.
you do?
Yeah,
I mean, it's just he's owning his queens are just going left and right. They're just completely destroying everything that you can see here. He has everything out from the Zerglings to the. I mean, just look at it. You can't go anywhere. He's over the creep the whole entire time. He's trying to split them up, but then gets surrounded over here. Unfortunately, Templar can't do much. Like, Cyril just had this whole entire thing. There goes the economy. As you can see at the end there, GG is about to be called. He is quadrupling his economy over here and his army.
From that last game, it was just tons of resources being developed to kill pylons. And from being down in so many different numbers, you're never going to get those numbers back, especially spamming Archons. But that is the name of the game, right? You got a Hydra build coming through from Basilisk Zeril. You're trying to get Storms online and clean up at least with your Zealots, but your base was under threat for so often. You saw what it meant there on the mini-map. So all the way at the end, Basilisk Zeril, us in the office, we're sitting there talking about just one of the coolest logos that we've been able to see as far as an esports organization. The story is just also equally as cool. To sign up Cyril, who has been the winningest player throughout the entirety of this year thus far. For StarCraft II, will take it in 7 versus South Korea's very own veteran Classic in the ZVP. And honestly, there's no telling how far that Zerg build will go. He is not losing any mirror builds anytime soon. The only time when he is losing is when his expansion gets stuffed. So if you beat him in the first 10 minutes, you can beat Cyril. But if you reach past that 20-minute, good luck.
Yeah, and congratulations to him. Another notch under that belt there. Got to crush the key, got to get the trophy, and congratulations. We'll have to see what is up next for him as you know the rest of the year goes on. But of course, we have a lot more to go over as well because we had plenty of, regular PC games, but don't forget about all those mobile games that we have set for EWC. I can't believe it, but we had Honor of Kings, we had Mobile Legends Bang Bang, PUBG, but let's go and kick it off with some Mobile Legends though. Kicking off again more of their group stage and their bracket play before they get into the finals for that we have this week. But this game was kicking off and we had a ton, and I mean a ton of the champions playing each other in their groups. There wasn't a group that I saw here that didn't have one of the winners of their regions playing against each other, especially in this Group A. We have Team Liquid from the Philippines playing against Ultra Legends. It would be Team Liquid just dominating this Group A though. Going into it, they were able to get the 2-0 over Ultra Legends. Then Onyx, they were able to get the 2-1, making their advancement to that knockout stage. And they just looked really good doing it.
Dude, this tournament's been going on for so long at Esports World Cup. If you're unfamiliar as far as Mobile Legends Bang Bang is concerned, it's exactly what it sounds like. It is a mobile version, a speed-em-up version of League of Legends, but there's been so many teams just in and out of Esports World Cup. It is their end-of-season tournament in the Esports World Cup. So you had the wild card phase, where you saw teams being eliminated before the event even started, and now we're in the group stage. And to Chris's point, because of the way that the season was panning out, you have all these top seeds actually going up against each other just within the groups. And throughout all of this, what you're seeing right now is just the devaluation of the group stage. I believe that this right here is going to be the lower bracket of Group A. The Flash trying to fight their way back. We saw Onyx as well fight their way back versus VP. But man, Chris, you watch a lot more League of Legends than I do. I watch a lot more mobile esports than you do. This game is nothing short of just absolutely fun. There's just tons of action.
It was definitely great. I mean, we're looking at here in Group B from Team Spirit. They came out of their region as well, looking really good.
Correct.
They were Team Spirit from they were advancing. Then we have RRQ as well advancing. I mean, these games were nothing short of just actually really fun to watch. I went back and was watching a lot of the replays and just from a Mobile Legends, as you said, League of Legends is my main game, but I can still follow this and you can definitely tell a lot of the skill that's going into it. But you can definitely tell a lot of these teams how they won their region. They're just completely dominating some of these second seeds and even some of these wild card run-ups into it that allow them to get there. But then you're having teams that are first places playing against each other, sending others to the lower. Luckily, that lower bracket was there. If not, some of these teams that got first in the region would have got knocked out early.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. This game is just so wildly fun. It's just so cool to be able to see the develop. We got Esports World Cup League of Legends concluding last week. We got more of the group stage concluding this week. Group A, Group B solidified for at least their 8 teams that are going over towards the final conclusion of a single elimination knockout stage. Here's the last few moments of RRQ versus Aurora Gaming to at least conclude it. Aurora Gaming just cleaning up everything that they could possibly find. They're at the bottom of Group B, and they were able to take it at the end versus Team Flash, qualifying for themselves. RRQ were able to win that series. You saw from that highlight to qualify from the upper bracket area. And here is that playoff bracket. Again, single elimination, 2 different sides. You got a third place matchup as well, but Team Liquid, they won from the upper bracket side of Group A. Team Spirit, RRQ on the other side are actually on the same side of the bracket as well. So you definitely could think with RRQ and Team Spirit being on one side of the bracket, Chris, it's definitely heavy favored.
Yeah, and as I was alluding to earlier, you're having the Philippines first seed actually going against the Turkey first seed. That is going to be a crazy #1 game for that there, because Aurora did have to qualify through that lower bracket from group side of B. So of course they're getting put on to that, tough matchup versus Team Liquid. So I'm excited to see how that plays out. That's going to be definitely a lot of fun to watch this week.
There's a lot of things to keep in mind, especially throughout all the Esports World Cup, are the club championship points. We're going to be giving you a rundown on where that currently all stands, concluding this week as well. But still happening in Saudi Arabia on the Esports Boulevard there for the Esports World Cup is Honor of Kings. Again, a lot of MOBAs being played side by side there after we just concluded the King of MOBAs of League of Legends. I said what I said just last week, as we do have I want to say the conclusion of Honor of Kings just happened this week, or are we still going on?
So what's the conclusion? You're correct. So EWC, they're basically one of their big international tournaments before one of their others in Philippines later this year, and of course the Chinese finals. But again, we were talking about this earlier. TT and AGAL were 2 teams that were invited off of their wins in previous of those Chinese tournaments, and then they got the face-off. And we talked about them being these teams that no one really wanted to face, and they showed us exactly why here. They completely ran through their sides of the bracket to face off against each other. Look at that, AGAL 4-0 both of their series to get to the grand finals, and then TT only losing off that one against Nova. I mean, these 2 teams, I was watching their games, and they were just putting on absolute clinics.
Yeah, I mean, only losing one map between the 2 of them, and that was Nova that was able to take it off of TT before they actually met into the grand finals, and it was an absolute freaking banger. Anyone's legend would strike first. Again, gaining an advantage as far as Mobile Legends is concerned. It's very difficult to fight back from in regular League of Legends. Very difficult tenfold to fight back in Mobile Legends. The snowball was real as AL took a 1-0 lead.
They did in 11 minutes and 50 seconds. Going into this game 2, they were actually just up. As you said, the snowball mechanic, but this just shows where TT is that second team. They were able to come back in this game #2, despite being down almost 10 kills at one point. They went and then took, I believe it was the Tempest Dragon at that 20-minute mark, were able to swing that fight and then instantly win after. Just such a great job by them. And then here we see them in game #3. They would win games 2, 3, and 4 back to back, putting it on serious point before AGAO was able to come back. And this shows here this momentum that they're able to get. You're talking about that snowball. Well, we saw it here in this game. They're trying to trade back and forth, but TT was on a run after this.
That game 1 was the fastest one that we did have across the games that were played across the best of 7. Was actually that game #1, finished at 11 minutes and 50 seconds. And then things started to become a little bit more methodical towards the middle stages of this best of 7. So here's the conclusion of game #3. This would be 2 in a row now for TT Global after being blitzed in that game #1. Again, a very long, drawn-out fight inside of the base, but still focusing the Nexus will end up giving them that win, and thus TT Global going in towards this game #4, Chris, had a 2-1 lead.
Yes, and then we see here also the sweeping sides. This will probably be the most dominant one we saw from TT, taking it off of, we thought maybe we could see another reverse getting AGL trying to come back, but no, that was not to be. They would take it up serious point, and then this is where, once again, swung in AGL's favor. These 2 teams have faced off each other many of times being in that Chinese region. They probably know each other really well, but we do see why AGAL was considered one of the best teams coming into this as well. They were down with their backs against the walls, aced here, able to run it in, and then get this series back into it once again. So they take it, but they still have to win 2 more. They try to get back to that series point, and they would be once again here on this opposite side, just pulling it back, trying to get their way clawed back into the series to make it that best of 1 in these finals.
It goes down to the ultimate battle in between the two, push all the way towards a game number 7 by anyone's legend. The TT Global, after game number 4, that put them up on championship point. They just had to win 1 more game, but after 18 minutes and then a 13-minute game led to this 15-minute masterclass from anyone's legend to absolutely dismantle all of TT Global in a matter of 4 minutes, to then get up towards the Nexus to claim their prize as the Esports World Cup champions. A massive moment for anyone's legends. Again, we talked about their tumultuous journey just to get here, not only from their region, but to not see any adversity until grand finals, to then stare defeat in the face, to then come back and rip 3 games in a row is composure incarnate.
Yeah, staring defeat in the face is a little bit of an understatement when you're down 3-1 against one of the best teams in the world, and your biggest opposition, they were getting beat, and then they just made their way, crawled right back up after kind of, I would say a heartbreaking loss in that game number 2 when you're up so much and then end up falling in a, longer than 20-minute match. As you said, these games are pretty quick. We saw an 11-minute 52nd into a 20-plus minute game where they are up and probably should have won and then come back. You can see how much it meant when he wanted to let that trophy before they could finish calling them out. That shows how much it meant to them to win this event.
Yep. Massive moment for anyone's legend as far as an organization is concerned. Like I was hinting at earlier, and I will remind you again, we'll give the update as far as club championship points are concerned at the end of this show. But as we are tailoring away from Esports World Cup, doesn't mean we're tailoring away from the MOBA games, as we do have League of Legends. They had such little time to traverse from Saudi Arabia, depending on where they are globally, to just start competing in their regional stage.
Yeah, and as we said last week, finished up League of Legends. Now we're straight back into split number 3. That's right, we have Worlds just around the corner, so all the teams are right back in it. But let's go and check out what was happening in LTA North as we finally had some of the teams kicking off their play. And again, we have a new split. Means a new format. We saw depending on how they placed out from split number 2 was their game. So we ended up having FlyQuest versus DSG in our very first match. In FlyQuest, they looked just about as good as you can expect them from coming back after MSI and EWC. They took no prisoners, had no mercy on DSG, who did make a couple of roster changes going into split number 3. As you see, we do have Darkwing and Rahel making their way into DSG. It didn't matter too much. Early game looked a lot better for DSG, but of course, if you give FlyQuest an inch, they will take a mile. And this is where we see them testing out some stuff. So first thing first, we see Whippo on that Swain. He did really good. Now we have Geckos, though. He did a really good job making his debut against this DSG team who is ultimately just trying to target him.
I think you're mostly excited to be able to see that transition of using your new top laner as well, just being able to see what that looks like with the more aggressive, obviously the Rumble, not a direct pick that Whippo has enjoyed to pick in the past, but it's good to be able to see the diversity again. It just felt like that FlyQuest were missing something at Esports World Cup, let alone when we were at MSI, and this could be that step in the right direction. Again, taking down a very good DSG is good hopes for the FlyQuest team.
Yeah, and now we go to C9. C9 knocked out pretty much as quick as you can at EWC. Got there, they did their whatever they need to do for media. Went to 2 games, lost those 2 games, went right back. And well, they had pretty much a grudge to settle with poor Lion, who's coming out here, and then had a top laner that couldn't make it due to some visa issues. Yayo came in and filled in, but it just wasn't enough. You're going up against probably the best top laner in North America right now with Thanatos, and they just completely rolled over. Once they got going, they felt the momentum and they were able to win this game. Yeah, you take Otacon here, but you're going to get swept up by the rest of the team. Look at that. Thanatos going in, allowing the Shockwave to come off of that Renekton combo, ultimately winning. You see here a knockback from Yaos on that Gragas, but it's not going to matter. You're pretty much pushing them into your team. You get 1 kill on Sven, it doesn't matter. Blabber's just going to impale you and pull you back into the rest. Everyone else is going to dive off. He makes his way off back to the brewery before there, and there he is, gone once again. C9 looking really good against Lion. Now we would get into our middle of the tier matchups where they were much closer games. Team Liquid coming up against 100 Thieves. And these games were really close. I have to say, though, once again, Jan has looked so good for this team.
Yeah, you're really hoping for 100 Thieves just to be able to have any semblance of a bounce back as far as an LTA North performance is concerned. But the same thing could be said for TL. I mean, you got a lot of tenured names all the way across this board. So no surprise to me, Chris, that both these two teams, albeit spending some time away from our screens, are this hyper-competitive between each other on this patch.
Yeah, and as you said, it was Team Liquid who was the LTA's representative at first stand. They come back into split 2 and just completely falter after all the changes seem to be implemented. They kind of looks lost at time against this 100 Thieves who looked a lot more lost going into this. They looked really good, and especially as I said, Yeon just coming out. I don't know what it was with Ezreal this weekend for these top 3 teams that were playing with each other, but they were just completely popping off with these Ezreal plays. APA doing a good job as well on the Annie, but again, Impact actually had a really good game on that Renekton as well, getting kind of off of some of those tanks and onto it, completely allowed Eon to just go off. Yuji also having a much better game, 4-2-14. We'll have to see his progression as the split goes on. Now we have Shopify Rebellion versus Dignitas. Again, another 2 teams that are kind of trying to fight for that mid. Dignitas, of course, in that 7th place position, or 6th place position, trying to go up against a Shopify Rebellion who looked really good going split 2. It would be back and forth battles between both of them, but Fudge just completely popped off on this Ambessa throughout the whole entire game. I've been really impressed with his progression through this year so far. We know he's a tenured name, but he kind of had fallen off a little bit. Does look much better now, though.
I do Fudge on a hyper carry top lane. Like he gives me shades of like his Nasus way back in the day. I mean, Nasus may not be popular right now, but like to any sort of pick, like the Rumble is also a good pick. Like put Fudge in these positions to be able to not necessarily hyper carry it, but to be able to zone. Give this man some more damage, darn it.
Yeah, and I have to say, B-Boy looked pretty good. Of course, some of his builds are a little bit left to be desired at times.
Sure.
Holofox, though, did a really good job on this Victor. Once again, we know he got the pentakill last split with it. Looks really good going into this. Of course, the Ezreal, as I said, for some reason, really seemed to pop off for some of these teams going into this week. But that is the conclusion for that for the LTA North week number 1. As we said, we had those teams, depending on how they placed out in split 2, played each other. But split 3 now has that the losing team, the teams with the lower ends, end up picking who they want to play into the next week. So we did have Disguised Toast picking up first. They picked Shopify Rebellion, kind of rightfully so. You don't want to play against Liquid or C9 FlyQuest. So they decided to go that route. Dignitas then picked, our Lion picked Team Liquid second. Then Natasu picked Cloud9 second, because you only have 2 left, FlyQuest
Right.
and Cloud9. Then 100 Thieves, unfortunately, they didn't get the pick. They have to go against FlyQuest in their round number 2. We'll have to see how they can pull it off, because that's probably, one of the teams that had the best chance to beat them. But LTA South, we did have the games in. They have the same format because they are following the LTA splits. Going on Furia, just absolutely demolished Fluxo. And this is something, they had a crazy Seraphine pick as well that had to turn their draft on their head. That just shows how good they are right now. Pain as well winning, Red, and then unfortunately Loud Griffin losing to Vivo Keystart in their match. And we'll move on to some of the other regions because every other region has picked up as well. LPL, craziness is happening. We'll talk a little bit later about some of the biggest craziness, but Top Esports coming back, looking much better. They looked really good split 1, faltered a little bit in split 2. Now in split 3, they're back on top.
Yeah, anyone's legend starting off 0-2 is not in anybody's bingo card. Not what we got to see the grand finals run backed by Tarzan back at the Esports World Cup, falling up short versus Genji. And not to mention their midseason invitational run as well. Starting off 0-2, losing the way that they did to Billy Gaming. Whatever, a new jungle change. Something's got to give as far as AL is concerned. That is not okay to be starting off that low.
It's not. They're going to have to make their way back up, especially in this group ascend. As you can see, the top players in that group. Now, again, in this contenders group, breakout group, we see kind of a similar format depending on how they place in split number 2, depending on LCP, that's specific regions on what group they're going to be in right now. CTPC Flying Oysters, though, just completely running it. They're picking off where they left off in MSI as well as EWC, picking up their first win. And then, of course, GAM kind of faltering in that group as well, though. Breakout group, we'll have to see how that goes as the time goes on for this. Let's go and jump into LCK. And let's talk about this at the top here. Gen G probably had the roughest start. They had to come back and almost play in less than 48 hours in their turnaround to play in this Legends group, which are the top 5 teams from split number 2. They went against Hanwha Life, end up getting a win there, but then their streak would be broken when they would face against T1 in their home ground game, where T1 would pick up that win. T1 would also pick up again a win versus Nanshim Red Force. So great start for T1, who of course had a little bit less than optimal MSI run, coming in second, and then third at EWC as well. In the Rise group, these teams will be fighting to make their way into the bracket stage here with OK Braun, the Bros, making their 2-0 to start off. Love to see that for them. I hope they make it. They're a lot of fun to watch. But we know these first couple of weeks are really pivotal for a lot of these teams, and we're seeing some teams go down, like Anyone's Legends. Gen G losing their streak, of course, it could be a little bit due to exhaustion because they had to go straight into it right after. So we'll talk about that a little bit more on what's happening in League of Legends right now. As we were talking about, Gen G from Split 2 had went on a 27-game series win streak. This was the longest win streak in a series for League of Legends. They broke T1's, which was at 26. And then when they face off against T1, T1 broke it at 27. And congratulations to them, though. They did a great job. I don't think this is anything off of their chest. They've already qualified for Worlds at this point as well. Maybe it's a little bit of, weight off of their chest that they, got this loss off. They can rest up a little bit and then go back into it. As I said, that's a really hard group for LCK right now.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, you got to see just how all the competition was going to stack them against each other. We'll have a lot more of those matches as far as LCK is concerned as the weeks go on. But I think the most important part is that you don't have that weight on your shoulders like you're already talking about for Gen G. 27 matches to win straight is tippable, and a lot of those grand finals and a lot of those wins was against T1, and a lot of them were against Faker. The reason why we keep talking about Chovy versus Faker as far as that mid lane matchup GOAT status is concerned, it's still Faker, by the way. But regardless, we are definitely glued to be able to see what that means for a lot of these different teams. And well, speaking of T1, Faker just got re-signed to that 4-year extension all the way to 2029. We'll be seeing Faker don in red for T1 with that flagship organization there on his chest. Should be a very good time to be able to see where that organization does climb and where it can go. Back again for Faker, breaking more records as he is the first player in the LCK to reach 3,500 eliminations. That's just insane when you think about how long he's been playing that esport. We're going to be breaking down all of that and a lot more as far as League of Legends is concerned. Next Monday, you definitely want to make sure that you are glued because Chris is going to nerd out for you. But moving over towards Riot's other IP, we're going to be talking about VCT and its global shenanigans. We got Stage 2 currently kicking off all the way across the world, and there's a lot of different updates to be talking about, especially because Champions Paris is right around the corner. We're going to be taking a look at a lot of these different teams and what they do have to offer for themselves in with their own stage. There's a lot of different narratives to be talking about, but we're going to be starting off with the Pacific conversation. Their championship points put themselves in a situation where we do have teams already guaranteed to be putting themselves in a situation to qualify for Champions Paris, and some other teams that need to make a very strong run towards the end of this stage. PRX already guaranteed they're the first team with their win versus Boom Esports to make it towards Pacific playoffs, and nobody is surprised at the end of the day. They are your most recent Masters champion, but still coming up short there at the Esports World Cup. Nobody is really offended by this. But now moving over towards EMEA. This is a region that has a lot of focus on it, especially what Team Heretics has been able to do at the Esports World Cup. They snapped their final Grand Finals record versus Fnatic, and it feels like they've been in the free flow state all the way since then. They were able to beat BBL Esports, who are having themselves a little bit of a lackluster performance this stage, but on the other group, Fnatic are also finding themselves in the winning ways. As far as the standings are concerned, everything's shaking up as well as we expected. We'll get more updates as far as EMEA Valorant is concerned in the weeks to come. Now moving over towards the Chinese region. If you're waking up early alongside me, you know that you're very excited to be able to see what Edward Game are going to be able to produce with themselves. But the standings are not exactly what you expect, especially if your name is Jai Gaming. The XLG team of recencies past from Stage 1 was the #1 team as far as Valorant China is concerned. They go to the Esports World Cup. They come up short after what happened at their Masters run as well. But XLG, they barely shave a map 2 win away from Fun Plus Phoenix. That's not what you want to see if you are a fan of XLG. But the playoffs have been secured for anyone's Legend as well as XLG. We'll be able to see what that team does produce as a patch is looming in the distance. And now finally for the Americas. Everybody's favorite region is under a massive microscope for this one, mostly because of what's going on with G2. Again, Leaf, if you are out there, you hear my voice. I hope you are recovering well, brother. We are excited to be able to see your return for G2 Esports in Valorant because they need you, man. They are not looking good. G2 Esports probably not going to be able to make playoffs, but Sentinels will. Sentinels posted the first 13-0 win versus Furia on Icebox. If you missed those 13 rounds, go back and rewatch it because it was definitely a good time. As far as the standings are concerned, that's what they do look like, and, well, everybody is kind of keeping a close eye on what that group Omega is going to be able to produce for themselves. Leviathan definitely coming into the mix, looking a lot better. 100 Thieves also went through a roster change. They benched Busio. They have a new IGL into the mix, new roles. Same thing could be said for NRG. That was their week 1 win, but being undefeated is definitely a sight for some eyes. Cloud9 also doing quite well, but we're going to circle back all the way over towards EMEA. Here's how their region is stacking up. Like I said, Team Heretics, your Esports World Cup champion, still doing quite well for themselves with their 2-0 start right next to Giant X. They're going to be playing each other very, very soon. And on the other side, we do have Team Liquid and Fnatic. They are also undefeated, and you can tell by the canter of my voice they'll be playing each other very, very soon as well. Not a whole lot to go off of as far as close series are concerned, as it's still anybody's game to be able to see what these regions are going to be developed. But if you want to aim like them, you want to be up on that main stage, well, you best get towards the #1 aim trainer on the planet. I'm talking about AIM Labs, of course. Here's a word from our sponsor.
Games are about competition, a way to test our skill and prove we are better. Challenge is in our nature. We need to know what we're capable of. How far can we go? It's a question that drives millions of gamers to push themselves and prove that it's only a matter of sheer will. Ever since first-person shooters came into the esports scene, players have never stopped defying the odds through the most important mechanic of them all: aim. Aim is everything. It's a set of skills that needs to be trained, and this is where science and gaming meet in AIM Labs, the aim trainer that redefines what gaming means, because science doesn't leave anything to chance. Winning is never a matter of luck. Every brief moment of greatness takes constant and unrelenting preparation, and that's exactly what AIM Labs is about. We enable players to thrive and upset the balance. Together, we elevate play.
And now it's officially time for us to pack our bags again as we head back over towards Saudi Arabia for some Esports World Cup coverage. But we're going to be talking about chicken dinners, frying pans, and helmets galore. We're going to be talking about PUBG Mobile. This is probably one of the most leading mobile games on the planet. Yeah, you heard me right. Ever since PUBG's creation way back in the day, mobile tournaments have been taking the world by storm, and it's led all the way to the Esports World Cup.
It has, and well, what a, I was looking at these group stages and they were just absolutely crazy, especially some of these teams coming out. I want to shout out though, Alter Egos, looking at that 78 win on day #2, just absolutely racking up those points to help lead them as one of the #1 top contenders coming out of the group stages. But I mean, looking at these across the board, that toss there was absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, and Alter Egos, by the way, that is your Southeast Asia PMSL champion, of course, coming in towards the mix. They just lost out by points in that tournament to E-Arena. So some of your household favorites coming in sort of towards this, if you're looking for any sort of organizations, Team Secret, Alpha Gaming, R8 Esports is actually the Saudi invited team as well. And they weren't doing too terrible, but as far as this stage is concerned, again, we're not crowning a champion for PUBG Mobile, not last week. That's going down this week. What we have right now is the beginnings of the group stage, the survival stage, if you will. This is just to qualify for the main digs.
Yeah, and again, we're looking at the top 8 from these group stages that will qualify for this week's finals and knockout stage. But, we also have some of these teams, they still have one last chance this week as well. That'll be happening, I believe, today and tomorrow to see who the last 8 teams will be to join those top 8. and absolutely just crazy games coming out from all these players. So you can see here a lot of these grenades coming out, trying to move in as that circle, see if they can get this last win here. That comes in. Oh, the Storm's going to do a lot of damage, back them into a corner, and there is that chicken dinner. So they're going to get, as we talked about, Alter Egos is coming out on first with 121 points.
Yeah, that's massive, especially when you're thinking about how decisive E Arena was back in towards that tournament, just being able to win so many darn of those dinners. But I mean, as far as Alter Egos are concerned, like that day 2 was more than enough to carry you over the threshold just to guarantee the next stage. So they're going to be a part of that top 8 team, as you see all the way down to IDA, Esports, TT Global, Team Secret Alpha, Weibo, DRX, and 4 Thrives will be joining Alter Egos Ares as far as the next stage is concerned. But for everybody else from 9th through 24th, this is where the unfortunate part comes to towards your doorstep. The tournament becomes that much more difficult.
Yeah, and now it is, as he was alluding to, you have 9 through 24. Only 8 teams out of these 16 teams now will be able to make it to that final round to join those top 8 as well. So you're going to have to really slay out and get some of those chicken dinners on your plate if you want to make it towards that championship weekend here, as again, they are going to be playing today and tomorrow to see who will be those top 8.
Yep, survival stage going on, as Chris was already talking about, at the Esports World Cup. So you want to make sure that you are glued to your seat to listen to the sultry sounds of those commentators as they continue to tour guide you through all those chicken dinners. Again, PUBG Mobile is just an absolute ride at a time. Grand Finals will be going on from August 1st all the way towards the 3rd, and we'll give you the conclusion of all of that on next week's episode of Today in Esports. But speaking of another tournament that was going on, was not streamed on the Esports World Cup YouTube nor its Twitch, is because it's chess, baby. We were just starting off at the early stages as far as this tournament is concerned. Magnus was in attendance. He was actually watching Call of Duty more than anything because he didn't have to worry about playing chess. This is the last chance qualifier. This is the last in that you could possibly get off of what happened at DreamHack Dallas a month ago to qualify for the main tournament.
Yeah, we're seeing here our road there. Congratulations to our last chance qualification recipients, making their way into it. Wondering how much knowledge on your chess is, if you see any of the notable names that you're either winning and or losing.
Yeah, I mean, shout out to Andrew. Andrew was actually the the highest non-qualified rank in the LCQ because Vladimir Vedosev could not make it to the Esports World Cup, whatever those reasons are. I don't know. Do not at me. But regardless, it's one of those things that you love to see. Last second fill-in for the EWC last chance qualifier to qualify from the upper bracket. Sure, that's fine. But as we get all the way through the road to the EWC, here's the last 2 to be qualified. Levin and Anish will be joining the likelihoods of Magnus. Hikaru Nakamura is going to be in that main venue competing for that grand prize of $250,000 for chess. That's what you get for first place. It's $1.5 million for chess, and that's starting this week. So Magnus, he was sitting there, he's watching COD, but now it's time to get used to being able to protect that game.
Yep, and well, we're gonna have a lot of fun watching it. Of course, sorry, there are gonna be no engines to help out these players this time as well, but they don't need it. These are the best of the best that are making it way here, so we'll have to see how this goes off. I hope it really does well, and of course, they will be playing for some of those club points, so not only is their prestige on the line, but their prestige for their clubs also.
Club Championship conversations continue to be on the horizon as we now stay within Saudi Arabia. We're going to be talking about Esports World Cup Call of Duty. Black Ops 6 is finally reaching its conclusion in the Saudi Arabia venue for the Esports World Cup. It was a hell of a tournament.
It really was, and I was excited.
This week means everything, man. The season that we had in the beginning of the year was so dark, and the fact that we were able to turn around. Shout out Mace, and shout out that border agent, seriously, because if it wasn't for him denying beans, then I don't think we'd be in this position. So shout out everyone, and obviously the Optic Green Wall.
You were chanting something a second ago. There was 3 letters you kept saying. What were you saying?
Shout out to that border agent, man. Without that border agent, Mercules does not get last second filled in for Toronto Ultra, and thus Mercules does not get bought by Optic Gaming, and thus they don't win champs and they don't win Esports World Cup apparently.
Oh, apparently. I mean, Green Wall, though, on a tear through the last you start out the way they did. I don't think anyone expected them to get there, but congratulations to management on managing this team really well and figuring out the recipe for them to win not only champs but EWC. It's been a lot of fun to watch them.
It really has been. Optic absolutely to the moon. That's Dashie and Shotzi now going back-to-back tournaments, back-to-back champs last year with a different roster, and then Hook also getting his second chip and showing up there for the Esports World Cup. But as far as the tournament is concerned, we started off on Thursday with 16 teams, all invited or qualified one way or another, and we whittled our way all the way down towards a number 1. And the group stage was turning a lot of heads. Some for the wrong reasons, some for different organizations being represented, but mostly because of this. Omit, your challengers champions. You might see some familiar names, specifically on the left side of your screen there with Reese Vivid and Mackenzie Melts. But Craze and Mamba, through and through, are amateurs. They have never played in the CDL. They never played in the Pro League back when it was stated to be so. And they showed up and absolutely lit the world on fire. This is going back over towards Group D. They were there with the Heretics and FaZe Clan. And I said it on the Power Rankings episode. I did say it. I didn't know when it was going to happen, but they were going to upset either FaZe or Heretics. They had to play FaZe twice, Chris. And although they had to get past P7 there in the elimination phase to then face FaZe later on that day, they did it. They lost that map 1. And then they won and then they were able to win 3 in a row. Like, that's actually crazy.
It is really crazy, especially when you look at it that they lost that opening match to FaZe to come back and then win in that decider match to send FaZe home. These red teams haven't been having a good time, ever since champs has come around. But we're talking about challengers, as you said, making their way. And I remember watching that Power Ranking episode and definitely was keeping an eye out for them, and they looked really good.
Yeah, Craze was really having himself a good tournament. Same could be said for Mamba. I mean, both of them were finishing somewhere north of a 1.0 KD. I don't know the exact number, but they were having a lot of good pop-off moments. And here is the map number 1, actually from that second outing. The first time they faced each other, Omit were actually able to take that map 1. And then they had to force them all the way to a map 5, winning the map number 4. They were in a position to potentially knock FaZe down to the lower bracket early, but let's be honest, they kind of scammed that map number 5. But here is the rebound as far as the decider match is concerned. We're able to take that opening hardpoint was fantastic. Here is the next day for Omit, where they were going up against P7 Esports, again, formerly known as Omit Brooklyn. And, well, P7 Esports, they were able to take a map off of Omit. Last time they faced each other up in Canada, they actually didn't even take a single map off of them in Grand Finals. But Omit letting them absolutely have it. They were able to then bounce back, take that map 1 off of FaZe Clan. It was a Skyline Hardpoint 250 to 236. They lost the Search and Destroy, but then they eliminated FaZe Clan, your Esports World Cup 2024 champions, in top 8 or top 12, excuse me, and they'll go on to the championship bracket. Unfortunate to say, they didn't do anything in the championship bracket. Same thing could be said for the other challengers team of 5 Fears, who got the better of G2 Esports and Cloud9. But still, the fact that 2 challengers organizations and teams were there in the championship bracket is monumental within its own self.
Yeah, and we definitely, especially hearing some of the players say that there wasn't anything in challengers. No way for these players to come up, and look at them now, in all the way to these playoff brackets. Unfortunately, I do end up falling to Koi and as well as Vancouver Surge. But look at this though, we're taking a look at the run. Vancouver would end up making it to that grand finals, and then as well as Optic against Team Heretics, and probably one of the most fun matches that I saw from over the weekend.
Yeah, shout out Movie Star Koi, again, formerly known as Toronto Ultra, as they were able to get yet another top 3 finish again. Myself, I did not really think that the matchup versus Miami was going to, or Team Heretics, excuse me, was going to be able to go well for them, but they were able to beat Team Heretics in 5, and then the double Rookie of the Year of Heretics. The club championship points will have to bow out at 4th, but still a great season nonetheless coming through from Movie Star Koi as well as the Heretics. Movie Star Koi, by the way, picked up A before this tournament, and they were able to get top 3, some casual stuff. But Grand Finals was an absolute doozy. At least on paper, it was slated to do so. And it was none other than a rematch from the Call of Duty League regular season championship finals. Vancouver Surge versus Optic Gaming. Optic Gaming throughout all of this have not dropped a single series. Vancouver Surge throughout this entire tournament, including their 3-1 win versus 100 Thieves in groups, have not dropped a single series. So going in towards this one, you feel like veterancy for the grand final stage would be there for Vancouver Surge. This is their 4th Grand Finals on the year, and leading in towards this series, they've only taken 3 maps in all of those Grand Finals.
Well, you can get there, but you have to do something, and unfortunately for Vancouver Surge, they couldn't. I mean, this Optic team has looked really good, you know, coming from champs. But, I mean, I was taking a look at this. We have the rewind protocol, and then I was thinking that maybe we could see something. Well, we didn't see too much. And why do you think, you know, Vancouver Surge has been struggling so much here?
I wish I could tell you. I mean, as far as like the biggest changes are concerned, you do have Rambo Ray in voice comms. That was the biggest change as far as Esports World Cup is concerned, is having coaches in comms. But where we got Rambo Ray on one side, you got DD5, that is Karma on the other side for the coaching spot for Optic as the fist bumps would get underway. Such a cool introduction that they had here in the venue for Esports World Cup. Map number 1 would be starting off on Rewind Hardpoint. And Rewind Hardpoint, funnily enough, was the map mode combination that Vancouver Surge lost to Optic Texas for the chip at CDL Champs. And Vancouver Surge picked it for the map 1. It was a coin flip for the side, and Vancouver Surge said, you know what, screw it, the past month has been going pretty well for us in scrims. We got this on lock, twin. Not the case at all. Optic with a massive first lead. Shotzi's first life, he started off like 4-1 or something like this. Vancouver Surge did bring their way back all the way towards the second set of hardpoints leading in towards this final last moment. You saw Shotzi sneak right through Nasty on the 4 spree. Shotzi finds that 2 kills, and then that immediately forces Nasty just to try to contest. Dies inside of the laundromat, and Optic take a 1-0 lead.
They do, and on to the protocol, and I mean, this was just kind of crazy to me when I was watching the Search and Destroy. I thought it would have been a little bit closer, but 6-1 ending, like Optic just had this on lock, and I was kind of watching through Scum Stream so I could get a little bit of that information as well through it, so I can learn more. Of course, I learned the best from Andy over here when he talks about it, but I mean, Optic just kind of felt like they knew all the routes that Vancouver were trying to take.
Oh, they're so prepared, so planned, are Optic, especially like when you do have your coach right behind you. They don't know where what to make a call. They'll make a call for you, and that's exactly what happens with Optic. They only lost 1 opening duel in that map number 2, and then immediately got traded. Dashy went 8-1 for an 8 KD in map number 2. That's just clinically insane. But in towards map number 3, again, it is just Vancouver Surge not showing up, and you feel like on Protocol there's plenty of water to drown them out. Not the case, man. Like, what happened to the Vancouver Surge? They only took that 1 round. A last-second contest not to come through. You can see for Optic Texas, it is all business. They are up on championship point, 3-0 in, and they are ready to absolutely hoist that trophy. Hook's dad was in attendance. They're supporting his boy after he was able to watch him be able to win champs in person. It was a hell of a feel, I imagine, as far as the STC Arena is concerned. But, dude, Optic could do no wrong. Another 80-point lead. Mercules went on a 9 spree. He called himself in a Hellstorm missile. Dashy's here, 13-6, playing the head glitch like it's BO4 with the Maddox, and even the pistol finds himself a quad feed by himself. Yeah, Optic, why don't you go ahead and take an entire bow, because that was a hell of a run. Nobody, and I mean nobody, was taking that tournament away from Optic. Not on this weekend, not ever since picking up Mercules. And you heard at the beginning of the entire segment, if that border officer does not say beans, you cannot come in towards the country. Well, you don't have Mercules subbing for Toronto Ultra, and thus, Hex probably doesn't look at this guy and be like, yo, we need this cap for our team. And then he joins Optic, and then from top 8, they go top 4, and then champs win, and then they're able to win Esports World Cup. So, yeah, to turn around the season as far as a rookie is concerned is Herculean. But to even do a lot more than that, he actually surpasses Simp as far as the highest average placing is concerned. I know, very small sample size is concerned, but still a monumental feat nonetheless for Mason.
See what you did there?
Our Sony Tournament MVP, give it up for Shotzi! Fancy, come on up here and give this man his medal. I've got to ask, I think it's pretty obvious right now, but you're the best team in the world.
Undeniably. I think this has started something crazy. The players that are on my team are unbelievably talented. It feels like we're cheating at times.
Are you in contention for the greatest of all time that Call of Duty has ever seen?
Hey, I don't tell what people I am. They tell me.
Greatest team in Black Ops 6. What did
Just a really cool moment in general for Optic to be able to not only win that championship, and you heard from Shotzi, like, I don't make the decisions. People tell me who I am. I just show up and I play the game. They actually get to choose the 3 crushed keys that they can mold in towards their trophy. 100 Thieves, the team that was going against them quite often to say that there's no talent in challengers, able to pick up Mercules and win the chip. Heretics, the team that played them close all year long. Absolute ruler of a series. You hear Nameless in the background talking about how if they don't win that map 5, they don't find themselves here. And then Vancouver Search makes sense. They beat them at Champs Grand Finals. They lost maps there. They face them in EWC Grand Finals. They lose no maps here. And, well, of course, you got to put that in towards your trophy.
That was probably one of the best selection of those keys for trophies that I've seen so far. Especially, I was thinking back to the Gen G one where they're just kind of picking and they just rolled over everyone so much. It's kind of like, oh, what do I take? But this one makes a lot of sense. You pick 100 Thieves, then that, as I said, that Heretics, semifinals was down to the wire at the end there. Picking that absolutely great. And of course, when you're, beating someone back to back there, you're just going to put that in that trophy for them. Congratulations to Optic. Great job. I had a lot of fun watching, especially over this year, learning a lot more about it with my main man over here. Congratulations. I've kind of been a big Optic fan, so it's good seeing them. But congratulations to the rest of the teams as well. Glad to see a lot of those challengers teams moving their way up and making some names for themselves as well.
Yeah, no, it was a fantastic tournament. And again, we are now on hiatus. We'll have some S&D tournaments, sure, and maybe some off-season tournaments. Make sure that you are glued to the Global Gaming Network channel as we talk to you all things to do with Call of Duty Esports developing throughout the offseason, including some roster mania. But as we had Optic Gaming being able to win that championship to join the likes of so many different teams, that means 1,000 club championship points will be gifted over towards Optic. They will be earning themselves a spot as far as top 10 is concerned. But they're tied 9th place with just about everybody else that's been able to win a club championship thus far. As far as the championship is concerned, Team Vitality, off of winning their Mobile Legends Bang Bang women's only tournament, they are currently leading 2,400 points is where they're currently standing. Anyone's Legend, that's why we were talking about them with Honor of Kings, a massive moment for them. They're at 1950. Gen G Esports at 1,800, then Team Falcons at 1,750. 1,500 for Virtus Pro. And the reason why I'm talking about all these teams is because they still have so many different more tournaments to be playing through.
Yeah, and especially winning those, but those runner-up as well. AL running up in League of Legends in the 2nd place, as well as winning Honor of Kings now, boosting them up in those. So, of course, maybe not getting those first, but if you can consistently place in the top 3, top 4, you're going to get a lot of those club championship points to put towards your team, and we can't wait to see who will be crowned at the end of EWC.
Well, here's at least what you can be in store for week 4 is concerned, as we do have the schedule prepared for you guys. Again, here is week number 4 for Esports World Cup. Again, following our calendar, so Sunday already concluded. We got PUBG Mobile Survival Stage. That's going to be starting off this week. We got chess kicking off all the way throughout the week, and then we're going to be able to crown the champion for Mobile Legends Bang Bang, their main tournament. PUBG Mobile is coming to a conclusion this week as well. Chess, can Magnus raise another trophy? Will he get upset? And then Overwatch 2 for their midseason championship. This week is weird.
Yeah, it's a little surprise in your voice. Overwatch still good. Yes, Overwatch is still going.
I don't even know if the game's still.
Well, it's still going on, and we're going to see it. Of course, we do have some of the other digital sports kicking off as well, as we saw that FC will be kicking off for the soccer last chance qualifiers to begin their run through EWC, so I'll be kicking off this weekend as well. I'm personally super excited to kind of see what's going on in Overwatch. Haven't seen a lot of that competitive being played, but we'll have to see how they play out this weekend.
Yeah, should be a very good time. Make sure, as always, you guys subscribe to the Global Gaming Network channel, as every single Monday we do these long-form Today in Esports episodes to give you all of the happenings to do with esports all the way across the globe. We do short ones as well, if you did not know, and we'll make sure to put that title in the description down below. Words are very hard today, as you can clearly tell, so I'm just going to go ahead and get the heck out of here. Make sure that you guys are commenting anything that you guys felt like that we missed, and make sure that you guys follow along for all the shows, whether it's Queued Up, Skill Diff, or here for Today in Esports. Y'all stay safe, and we'll see you in the next one.